That brings us to the second presentation by Lucia. Lucia is the founder and heart, I would say, of Lusval, a coaching company which is focusing on organizational innovation, mentoring, and coaching for purposeful and collaborative work environments. She is trained as a geophysicist, so holds a MSc of Physics from University of Rome and a PhD in Earth Sciences from University of Geneva, and she's a certified professional coach. And she is building on 30 years of project management, research, teaching, and mentoring experience at different locations in academia and in business. Lucia, looking forward to your presentation. Over to you.
Thank you, Karen. So I will share my screen now. And please tell me if there is any problem either in the audio or in the video. Okay. Oops.
You're not very loud. But...
No, yes, it's not the right one. I will move to this one. So I am really happy and excited to share with you the very preliminary results of a project which combines collective intelligence and artificial intelligence to investigate the competencies needed in the energy transition. And I will first give you the context of the ZEST project, Zero Emission Skills for Transition. Then a very quick overview of the MILEVA artificial intelligence system, and especially the key indicators that we will look to analyze the results. Highlights of the main findings, and as we have seen, there is a lot of interest in carbon capture, so zoom in on the results about carbon capture, where in the geoscientist community we have heard about it for many years now. So let's see what MILEVA has to say there. And a few considerations about black swans, weak signals, emotions. We'll conclude the presentation before the what's next step in the project. So for several years, we have been seeing in the press the challenges that the employment in the oil and gas and also higher education specific to oil and gas has encountered. On the other hand, we know that the competencies of the geoscientists are important to society. And so I've been asking myself, how can I and my professional network do something in this context? And my professional network includes the EAGE local chapter Paris, of course, and business partners who are expert in artificial intelligence to perform social economic analysis. So the idea is to provide perspectives on these topics using a new approach. And the vision of the project is, of course, in the context of the climate emergency. So what are the competencies needed in the geoscience community to contribute to the goal of limiting the rise of temperature to 1.5 degrees? And the final result for the geoscientists is to provide insights from different perspectives so that every geoscientist can be empowered to be actor of her or his own career path. And of course, the oil and gas sector has an important role to play in the decarbonization, and also the companies are well aware that skills and talents are needed to face these challenges. And so we started with an online survey between February 20th to April 30th to collect ideas, promote awareness, and stimulate discussion. There was no attempt to constitute a representative sample. We asked 8 questions, and 68 respondents completed the survey, and of which 63% came from the oil and gas sector. On the other hand, we use the MILEVA Advanced Artificial Intelligence System, which MILEVA is a decision support tool, which has been used for actually over 10 years, providing complex analytics on areas of social, economic, or political interest. And we did run MILEVA for ZEST between April 10th and April 14th. So this was just before the negative oil price in the US due to COVID-19 lockdown. So dates are important there to see the results. And MILEVA uses the principles of actor network theory to combine heterogeneous actors and especially make them interact. This theory was developed at the Center of Sociology of Innovation at Mines Paris Tech by Michel Caillon and Bruno Latour. And in the next slides, we will see what we mean by heterogeneous actors. But before, I want to read a quote from Bruno Latour. Social does not designate a thing among other things, but a type of connection between things that are not themselves social. So you can recognize in the image elements, actors, which include emotions, environment, competencies, and in our context, we included also transport and refining in the oil and gas sector, and a series of actors grouped in risks and opportunities. And there are many more, as we will see. And what is important here is to think about the interactions between these actors. So what are common centers of interest between actors? So we gathered a panel of experts to define the context for this research. And the first thing we came up was actually competencies follow strategies. So the first question we should ask MILEVA is maybe, what is the most likely strategy oil and gas companies will adopt to face the zero emission challenge? And then we will think about the competencies. Of course, competencies are included in the model. So what we see here is a framework of 16 axes, grouping 153 actors. The number that you see beside each axis is the number of actors in each axis. So we have, of course, axes which include energy, oil and gas, competencies, economy and finance, strategies for oil and gas, and so on. And to define the actors in MILEVA, you need to give a series of keywords, let's say about 10, but it can be a little bit less or even much more keywords, many more keywords. And we ended up with over 3,000 keywords for the 153 actors. Then MILEVA started the run and extracted over 80,000 documents from the web. So the key indicators we will look in the outputs. MILEVA, of course, gets a lot of tables and graphs, but we will have just a look at a few of them. So the first indicator is the proximity index, which is, it tells you how many centers of interest are shared between actors. This index is expressed in percentages on a normalized relative scale between 0 and 100. 100% is, of course, the proximity index of an actor with itself. There is the communication emitted by each actor, and in particular relevancy and impact, and also the top converging actors, which is a kind of sort of popularity of an actor among the network. And here I'm using a common language to give explanation, because it would take many hours to explain in a rigorous way all those things. Going back to the proximity index before moving to the next slide, I want to mention that we will look at the averages, because of course with 153 actors, we have over 11,000 proximity index of an actor with all the other actors. Altogether, they make over 11,000. But we will look first at the overall average proximity index over the entire network. Then a few consideration of proximity index, average access by axis. And then we will have a few slides where we will pinpoint proximity index between some specific actors. So what we found concerning the question, what is the most likely strategy oil and gas companies will adopt to face the zero emission challenge? The first result is quite surprising because the overall interest of the network concerning this question is of only 43%. So the average proximity index over the entire network. Remember, the maximum can be 100%. So 43 is very moderate. And also the overall level of communication is quite modest, 51%. Then we have two actors of the access competencies, which attract high consensus about the questions. So these are the popular actors. And we have geographic information system and visionary soft skills. Visionary soft skills give you a few keywords to grab what it means. We have a future-oriented, changing paradigm, and in general skills related to soft skills related to and useful for innovation. In terms of geographic information systems, it doesn't come as a surprise that this actor is popular. However, what is its strategic importance concerning the question? And in the panel of experts, there is a consensus that we got this popular actor because it's something which is used everywhere, but this is not going maybe to change anything concerning this, the asked question. And in fact, when we look at the impact of the communication of this actor, the impact is below 40%, so not very high. So let's have a look again at this mind map. Now that we know what the proximity index is, actually, if you consider the center of this map where there's the question, the axes are plotted in a way that is proportional to their average proximity index. So we find that indeed the axis, the actors in the axis oil and gas and the energy axis and 100 solutions, which include solutions to facilitate the zero emission challenge, they are taken by drawdown.org solutions. They are very close to the question, and they have a relatively high average proximity index, as competencies as well. Competencies include, we see that we have 18 actors. They include soft skills, but they include competencies specific to the geosciences, and also competencies, support competencies like finance, auditing, marketing, and sales, and so on. So we find all these axes are have higher average proximity index than the 43%. And what comes as a surprise is that the strategies for oil and gas are almost at the periphery of this network. So few hypotheses that we can emit here is that maybe the oil and gas sector is still reflecting about the course of actions to take in order to contribute to avoiding the to reaching the Paris target, or maybe remember the dates, the documents available on the web were not complete. In fact, we had, if I remember well, some announcement of a strategy by BP in February, last February, and the comments on the web, which I saw is this document is more of a vision than a strategy. And also Shell did emit a strategy announcement, but it was on April 16th, and MILEVA stopped running on April 14th. And so now if we go to look more in detail at these strategies, for oil and gas companies, we took ideas on the actors to put there from a PricewaterhouseCoopers report on the oil and gas in 2019, and also some feedback from the ZEST survey, online survey. And so you have act on portfolio or on renewable energies, build vision on core know-how, and promote agility, full speed on fossil fuel alliances and consortia. And the other actors that you see on the slides are actors from the oil and gas axis, and also from competencies. And the particularities that each of these actors have a proximity index over 90% with one or another of the actors in the strategies for oil and gas. So for instance, transport and storage have a very high proximity index with act on portfolios. Then we have all on renewable energies has a very high proximity index over 90% with national oil companies and oil and gas regulators. And here just a little comment. It was unfortunate that we put together these two entities in the same actor. We will see later on how it is important to separate them. And just to be sure which one of these two elements has a high proximity index with all renewable energies. And it doesn't come as a surprise that exploration and production has a high proximity index with the build vision or core know-how, and also that data science and machine learning in the access competencies has a high proximity index with promote agility. We have seen that, we've read many reports in the press that these two things are linked. And now, as promised, a zoom in on carbon capture. Here we have we put carbon capture in the energy axis. And so what we have here on the left-hand side, we have the actors which have proximity index higher than 90% with carbon capture. And here I just want to drive your attention to the fact that either in the actor's name or in the axis of the actor, we have words like knowledge, competencies, knowledge again, knowledge, and in companies, there is a high proximity index with the consultancy major companies like McKinsey, Pricewaterhouse, and all these companies which make studies and very high-level analytics. So, and of course the majors, this also doesn't come as a surprise. There is high proximity index of the majors with the carbon capture. But what I want to state here is that maybe carbon capture seems to be a topic for specialists, okay? And this seems to be confirmed by the result to one of the questions we asked on the ZEST survey. We asked to rank 7 themes, all important for the energy transition, but we obliged participants to rank them in order of relevance. And you see in the black curve represents the consolidated answers from people coming from oil and gas and other sectors. And in blue, the responses from the oil and gas people, let's say, and in red, all the others. So everybody agrees about the first two themes, electricity generation, storage and distribution, and transportation. They rank top, first or first and second position. And in concerning the third and fourth position, there is just a swap between oil and gas and non-oil and gas, between land use and food, and materials management, saving, and recycling. Where there is a difference is the carbon sequestration come at the last position from the people who not come from the oil and gas, while the oil and gas people put carbon sequestration at the 5th position. So it seems to confirm that in the context of specialists, carbon sequestration has more relevance than in general society, which seems to confirm also what we heard before. So now Black swans. So MILEVA, what MILEVA does, MILEVA analyzes also weak signals emitted from the actors to estimate the probability of disruptive events, which are called black swans. And the black swan term was actually became popular around 2007, 2008 with the financial crisis. It was suggested as a term by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. I think he was a trader, and it's an analogy to indicate an event which comes by surprise, which has a strong impact, let's say, on the environment, has huge consequences. And by looking after the event happened, one could rationalize and say, but there were actually some signals, which signals that if had they been taken into account, we may have forecasted what happened. And so here what you have is a table, a graph that MILEVA outputs for black swan events for some of the actors with high probability. And just mention the first two. The very first one is national oil companies and oil and gas regulators. So you see here again how it is important to separate these two elements, and also social governance. So let's have a look at which weak signal are the national oil companies and oil and gas regulators ignoring. And we look in a table in MILEVA, and we see that the actor is just private international law. And I leave it like that for concerning the black swan for these actors, and move to the weak signals over the entire network that we have seen before. We have here the 16 axis on the and the weak signals emitted in this graph. We can see that the strongest weak signals are come from the axis emotions. So what do we have in emotions? In emotion, we have four axes, four actors, sorry: opposition, resignation, excitement, and accomplishment. And you can see some of the keywords. In resignation, fear, sadness, discouragement; in opposition, anger, indignation, hate. And I let you read the others. What I want to point out here is that the segments which are ignoring the weak signals emitted by either resignation, excitement, or opposition are social governance and producer countries, and also US policy and economy think tanks. And there is also nice convergence between the artificial intelligence and the collective intelligence. We asked the participants of the survey if they agreed about a statement recognizing people's needs and motivational drivers while addressing negative emotions and leveraging on positive ones will be relevant in the context of the energy transition. And the large majority either agree or strongly agree with that, no matter if they came from oil and gas or other sectors. So what can we say after all this? It seems that the strategies we consider are at the periphery of the ongoing exchanges between actors concerning the energy transition. Carbon capture and storage seems to raise attention on mainly among specialists. Interested stakeholders maybe should communicate more effectively and broadly on the importance of carbon capture and storage to contribute to the zero emission goal. We have seen the importance of addressing emotions for social governance and social stability. And at this point, concerning the competencies, well, we have good news. In fact, competencies are important to implement strategies. They have a high average proximity index concerning the question. So we can say that competencies follows the strategy, yes. Competencies follow strategies. Competencies are important to implement strategies. And finally, we saw that data science and machine learning stand out to promote agility. And what's next in the ZEST project? Well, first of all, split these actors in two, national companies and oil and gas regulators. And of course, we will have to fine tune, simplify the framework. We may bring some changes to it. And we will have to ask questions about the competencies. Here, there is one question we could ask, but I invite you all, please, to write on the chat if you have suggestions, questions for MILEVA, and please write the question you would see could be interesting to ask about competencies and the energy transition. These are the two fixed points, but then how to phrase it, I will be glad to collect all your suggestions, and then we will do a second run of MILEVA. I want to thank, of course, the panel of experts which worked, people who worked with me, geoscientists from the EAGE local chapter Paris, an expert in finance with a strong background in oil and gas, of course the usual team, and the specialist in artificial intelligence. So thank you very much for your attention. Here is share another convergence between artificial intelligence and collective intelligence with this word cloud, which collects the competencies identified by the respondents to the ZEST survey. And you see that they ring a bell with the visionary soft skills that we saw before. There is also the word agility, and that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lucia, for sharing this quite diverse view on geoscience skills for the energy transition with us, or more on the strategies that energy companies, and particularly oil and gas companies, are embarking on. Perhaps to kick off a bit of discussion, could you clarify for the actors, the proximity indices, does it work in a way that MILEVA searches in the documents for these keywords, and then the number of hits defines the proximity index to the question that you pose, or how is the proximity index calculated? And apologies if I missed that.
No. There is a complex. MILEVA uses deep learning and neural network. So there is this search webbing with search web with the keywords, but then for each these documents are all put together for each actor. Let's say, to simplify that, all the documents for an actor are put together, and then they are analyzed in terms of entropy and information system, as Claude Shannon defined. And then for the interactions, it's even more complex. So first, there is the first step is information, and then the interaction between actors it uses even more complex concepts.
So not as simple as I thought. Sorry for oversimplifying that. One other brief question. You highlighted that emotions were weak signals that may be overlooked despite their importance. And I also saw that society was actually quite far from the center. Do you see a relation by those two? Is kind of society and emotions in society both not taken sufficiently care of?
Well, this is it's a good question, and one would have to look more in depth into that. I can make a guess. For instance, when we saw weak signals emitted, I think there were both resignation and anyway, there was resignation for the producer countries. What that can, maybe this can give some indication. And also in terms of social governance, we heard before also Mark's answers concerning the not having the CO2 in my back garden, and this kind of reactions. And when when I say they should be taken into account is, well, first of all, maybe, I don't know how, but the first step is to recognize that these emotions are there, and even for people feel them, and then try to bring the dialogue to a higher level without disregarding the emotions, accepting them, but maybe being able, once the emotions have been accepted, to high grade the dialogue.
Further to that, we received a question: emotions are partly driven by modern media. Do you see a possible mitigation of this?
Don't start me on that. Yes. Well, I will give you my personal view also as a scientist. What I see that is often the word of the experts, and by experts I mean some scientists. We saw in the COVID-19 what we saw in the social media. I must say, it really upset me. I mean, there are, of course, the virus was not well known, but you know, experts have been used maybe to as the words of the experts have been used maybe by politicians, and we didn't hear the experts themselves. And there is a more there is a debate, ongoing debate in the scientific community also, of how the scientists are also citizens, and how they could put an effort in being more clear to when discussed with people, because otherwise things will get impossible to control, and we can assist to this phenomena of fake news.
Yeah.
I think
no, absolutely.
my
No, thanks again, Lucia.